So I've lived in maybe 8 cities for a year or longer, each of them. I've lived in the US. I've lived there. I've experienced it. That started in 99 and it ended in 2007. Since 2007, I have not been back to the US. I was actually banned from the US for 10 years. So that's why I didn't go back. And I lived there. I quite literally had my stuff in my home in Scottsdale and was not allowed to go home to get my stuff. It was crazy. I suppose I can't just drop that and say, okay, guys, that's it. We'll see you tomorrow. Probably wondering, how does this guy get banned from the US for 10 years? If you want to know, I'll tell you. So back then, my wife at the time was doing her MBA at Rice University, and she had some type of, I think it's called an H-1B visa, something like that. And at the time, I was just a Canadian going across the border. We can go across the border at will, basically. You just show them your passport and boom, there you go. You just go across the border. So I would just do that. I would just go to the US and I basically lived there for a long period of time. But for some reason, she saw this guidance counselor at Rice University who told her that it would be easier for me to travel if we were married, right? If I used my sub visa under her H-1 visa, because we were 2 weeks away from getting married. So we were going to get married in Taiwan. And for some reason, Rice University didn't actually ask her, are you married? There was some type of miscommunication where they thought that she was married, but she wasn't married. It was like 2 weeks to go. I get my visa and we go to Taiwan. But we are not officially married because we have to do that in Canada. We just did a ceremony there. So when I came back, we showed both of these pieces of paper at the border. And of course, we are not officially married yet. Somehow it casually came out that, we're not actually getting married till next Tuesday or something like that. So the border guard freaked out. He could have just said, oh, just put this piece of paper away, show me your passport. Next week, you can use that piece of paper and you're going to be just fine. Just remember, that's actually for married people. It's not for soon to be married next week people. But he didn't. He decided to use his power and get me. They took me into the back room. They yelled at me. They called me whatever. Like I'm trying to come into the country illegally, and they treated me really badly. And I know how to speak to them. I was being perfectly courteous and polite. But anyway, they said, no, you lied to a border guard. That is punishable. 10 years, you're out of the country. So I told them, well, this is a problem because I live in Scottsdale right now. So how am I supposed to go get my stuff if I'm not allowed in the US? They kicked me out of the country. They sent me back to Canada. This story gets even funnier. So in Canada, I needed to go back to Scottsdale, but I can't enter the country. So I hired a lawyer to fight this case for me. I spent maybe $10,000 on a lawyer. We did all these court things. We signed all the papers and we back and forth. And then I got my thing. And it turns out I lost the case, right? I technically did break the law and there was really nothing to do. So I wasted $10,000 on a lawyer. But then after the court case lets up, the lawyer tells me, you know what? I actually have a friend who works at the border near Montana, right? The Alberta-Montana border. I have a friend who works there. If you just drive across the border, I'll make sure that my friend is there. And I was like, are you sure? Like this is illegal, right? And he's like, yeah, it's illegal, but you are Canadian and this is kind of a situation, so it's fine. I'll make sure my friend's there. So I listened to him because I have to go to the US and get my stuff. So I went down to Scottsdale. I got my stuff. I put it in my car. I have an SUV at the time. I went to the bank. It was the Bank of America, so it was a US bank. I withdrew all my money, which was I think $33,000 in a bank draft, right? Because I didn't want to send it because that would be proof that I was standing there. So I took a bank draft out of the Bank of America and I drove across the border, and the border guard that was supposed to let me through, for some reason, it was just horrible luck that day that guy's superior officer was at the office that day. So he was basically looking over the shoulder of the guy that was supposed to wave me through. He got caught by his superior and they caught me. So they took me out into the back. They found everything. They stacked it all up on this table. They stacked my computer, my golf rangefinder, my golf clubs, everything that was valuable in any way, shape, or form. They put it on this table and they basically said, everything you can show me a receipt of, you can keep. Anything you don't have a receipt, you have to pay duty, 40% duty or whatever it is on these items. Plus, because of the bank draft, they found that too, because that's over $10,000 of value, they are legally allowed to confiscate that. So they took that. Didn't matter how polite I was definitely breaking the law at that point. So yes, they took everything. I basically said, well, everything there is 4 years old. Obviously, I don't have receipts. There you go. lost all my stuff, paid a lawyer $10,000, lost my bank draft. I mean, it was punishing. And then basically they said, okay, well, we're not going to arrest you. This is understandable what you're doing here, but don't come back for 10 years. That's my story about the US. I am a criminal, a hardened criminal, but really, I mean, the whole situation, every time I think about this, it makes me so mad because that border guard quite literally could have just said, not today. Just take this paper. My passport was on the desk. He could have just dragged the passport over and said, you're a Canadian, you're allowed to be here. Show me that paper next week. Have a good day. The whole thing could have been resolved by just catching one nice guy on a day. But instead, it cost me $50,000 and 10 years ban in the United States because of one border guard. So even to this day, everybody who talks about how, police are stupid and, the tax guy will never find you. And sometimes people ask me why I tell everybody to make sure you're paying your taxes. If you're a digital nomad, make sure you're doing everything on the up and up. My wife, I always tell her, sometimes she has that impression because in Taiwan, they don't really respect the law very much there. They don't respect the government, the police. They're kind of just, they can argue back and forth and whatnot. I'm always the type smile, say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, all that, super polite. It's because of my experiences with this. It's like these people I see, on these police videos when they get arrested. I'm just thinking, what are you doing? If there's an officer on the scene, this is a serious thing. It's yes, sir, yes, ma'am, hands in view all the time. Don't ever shove someone. Don't ever argue on the scene. The time to argue is in the police station in a chair with your lawyer next to you. On the scene of the crime? Are you crazy? It drives me nuts that there's so little respect because they really do have power over you and they can ruin your day and possibly your life if you do something wrong. So don't mess with people in positions of power. You don't know if they're having a horrendously bad day. They're going to misinterpret something you said as adversarial when it wasn't. They're going to think you were aggressive when you weren't. They're going to think you were reaching for something when you really just wanted to show them something. You have no idea. Just cross on the southern border. No problem. Just loop around. How do I get from here to there? I could go to Mexico. Yeah. I thought, I pushed my luck. The second time I was illegally breaking into the US for sure. No doubt. The first time I think they were crazy. They should have just let me go. The second time, that's a little much. Driving across the border and arranging with a lawyer that there's going to be a guy waiting to wave me through. That's not cool. So for an extensive volatility metrics dashboard updated daily and to see all of the live trades for our tactical rotation and option strategies, click this link right here and claim your free trial to the VTS community. You're always welcome to join us anytime. See you next time.